In-Goal Radio, the podcast, and In-Goal Premium coming together with a big interview today talking about a prospect that the Boston Bruins drafted a few years ago. It was a prospect that was on the somewhat outer reaches of the scope of top prospects, but boy, has Jeremy Swayman ever blossomed, and he is leaving college, turning pro with a boatload of hardware in his hockey bag. We'll get into Jeremy Swayman, and who is joined by his goalie coach, Alfie Michaud, who had a cup of coffee in the National Hockey League and played professionally for a number of years, and it's a double team effort between Michaud, Swayman, and Kevin Woodley, who's on the line right now, along with David Hutchison, the co-founders of In-Goal Magazine, In-Goal Radio, the podcast, In-Goal Premium. I mentioned all three of them because, Hutch, you little devil, you, a webinar coming up this weekend with Carey Price. And it just so happens that it's on May 3rd at 1 o'clock. And if you put that together, you've got a 31. Was that part of your conscious decision-making that Carey Price would be on an In-Goal podcast webinar on May 3rd at 1 o'clock?
Yes, that's who I am. I like things to be a little punny like that. And that is 1 o'clock Pacific. Carey is born and raised in British Columbia, so that's in the BC time zone that we wanted to be so poetic as to make it 31. We're co-hosting it with Eli Wilson Goaltending, a longtime friend of the show and of the site. And Eli does some work with Carey every year, so he was able to bring Carey on this with us. And I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to take some questions from people who sign up, and I will make the point that this is for In-Goal members. You need to be a member of In-Goal Premium, and then go to the page and sign up there for the webinar. Unlike our previous ones where you could just drop in, you do need to register in advance for this one because we're quite certain that it'll be very popular and will more than likely fill the only 500 seats that we have for this. You'll get the opportunity to submit some questions when you register or shortly afterwards so that we can take a number of those to Carey. We'll do sort of a Q&A style interview with him that will probably at some point, a bit of that will make its way onto this podcast. And we're also thinking of trying something we haven't done before, which is, I'm going to call it Pro Reads Live, where we'll show a few plays to Carey and walk him through in the style of the Pro Reads segments that we've had up on In-Goal. 20 of those up now, guys, as of today. So super popular segment that we're doing. But I think it'll be fun for everybody on the webinar to see Carey actually walk through that live. Maybe even because you can submit questions on the webinar, might even be able to ask a few questions about what he's doing there as well. Get a little back and forth going. And I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
And a goalie coach too with Eli Wilson. So there's a lot of resources happening at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that we have from Eli is he was kind enough to send along some video of Carey in practice and then tying the exact same scenario in practice to some saves in the NHL. Something that we think is really important, being able to tie game-like scenarios. So he's got the video that matches with those. Don't know if we'll roll that out this weekend or later on. But nice opportunity to do some good stuff there, eh, Woody?
Yeah, I don't know why Darren's still surprised that it's Carey Price on May 3rd at 1 o'clock, 3/1/31. I mean, we had episode 31 of the In-Goal Radio podcast with Carey Price. So you know Hutch is all about those synergies.
But was Carey Price available Thursday and you put him off to Sunday just to make it time out properly with your numerology?
No, but he was so accommodating. We just had to propose some times, and the first thing that came to mind was 1 o'clock on Saturday because that matched up with previous webinars. And as soon as I looked at the calendar, I'm like, Eli, let's make this Sunday. You okay with that? And he was good with that. So
that's outstanding.
Can't help it.
Okay, so we'll mention it again after the conversation with Jeremy Swayman and Alfie Michaud. But one more time, how do people get involved, and how can they submit a question that could be presented to Carey Price?
Okay, so I can give you a definitive answer on part one of your question and probably on part two. As this podcast is available, there is a registration link available at In-Goal Premium. So you just have to be a member of In-Goal. Head over to ingoalmag.com and find that post. It will be right at the top and easy to find, and there'll be a link in there. You just click it and sign yourself up. Real simple. Probably in the sign up phase, we'll have a question there that if you'd like to post something to Carey, you can put it in and we'll go through a selection of those. We're still a little new as this is an evolving technology. And if for some reason that's an issue, we'll just have a little form right there below the link at InGoal. So we'll make it super simple one way or the other. Obviously, with 500 people there, we can't promise everybody gets their question answered, but I'm sure we'll have some real similar ones, won't we, Kevin?
Yeah, just as we did with the webinar with Pete Fry last weekend, you'll have that ability because it is a webinar and not just a Zoom call. You'll have that ability. There'll be a Q&A button. You'll be able to click it and submit questions as we go, and we'll do our best to sort of filter that through what we expect will be a lot of questions. So try and group them a little bit because some of you will have the same question, and then we'll make sure we try and direct as many of those as possible to Carey within the time frame we're looking at.
And if you are not an InGoal Premium member, you go to ingoalmag.com and you can sign up for that, and that'll open up the avenues.
A world of goaltending will be opened up to you, Darren. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, think about it. If you get a chance to sit down with Carey Price for an hour on a Sunday afternoon, would you pay $6? I think a lot of people would. And wait, there's your monthly membership. So this is just a little bonus that we're able to offer on top of what we always planned on doing for our members. And what a great opportunity, I think.
I would also encourage them, and not to go all salesy here, but if you want to subscribe for the whole year rather than just a month, I'd highly recommend that. The rate comes down. It's just $50 Canadian for the year, which is like 2 nickels in the US for an entire year. It's less than $1 a week in Canada. It's like 70 cents in the US. There are more than 100 articles up there already so far. We've been at this for 5 months, averaging, 20 articles a month. We've got over, like Hutch said, 20 pro reads already. So weekly, we have an NHL goaltender going over video, reviewing saves, reviewing his reads, tips, drills, all kinds of different technique and different elements that pro goaltenders, NHL goaltenders are bringing this to us. So we've just tried to open up that world, and the guys have been really good with us and the coaches, and we're trying our best to make sure that our membership has access to something nobody else does in terms of the materials, and they're at InGoal Premium. So I'd highly suggest that the annual subscription is worth the price. Less than $1 a week it's going to cost you. And hey, the bonus is you get a chance to be in a webinar with Carey Price this week.
Something new in the pro reads too this week, Darren. You don't even know what's going up today. I think you're going to enjoy it. We've got Jonathan Bernier actually sitting down with me for an entire shootout that he had with the Ottawa Senators, where he looks at not only what he's doing.
Love it.
Yeah, not only what he's doing, but what's happening at the other end of the ice. And we get into some sort of, actually, I misspoke myself in one of my questions at the end, and it turned into something kind of interesting when I asked him, is there a difference for you between a shootout and a penalty shot in terms of how you approach it? And he had a very interesting answer to that as to how that changes things as well. So really
first blush, I would say that there's no difference, but there
was.
Yeah,
there was. I know. I meant to ask.
Don't give it away, but that's really interesting.
I won't give it away, but I meant to ask difference between a shootout and a breakaway, because of course with a breakaway there's a little pressure and it changes the whole scenario. And I ended up asking about 2 you would think are similar situations, but he actually had a reason they're different.
See, it proves there's no dumb questions.
Just dumb questioners.
And
hey,
and sometimes the odd grumpy answer.
Yes.
that comes through that. You guys remember 2017? The summer of 2017?
Sure.
No? Okay, so there's this young player named Quinn Hughes.
Heard of him.
Who was selected by the Vancouver Canucks and has a great chance of being the Rookie of the Year. He was taken in the first round by the Vancouver Canucks, and a couple of rounds later, in the fourth round, the Boston Bruins picked up Jeremy Swayman out of the USHL. And yes, he hadn't played a college hockey game yet. And Woody, you're looking at me all confused. You don't trust my research here, do you?
I trust your research. I was waiting to see how you intersected the two.
Well, I'm just saying, there's Quinn Hughes. You're at the top. You're the superstar. Everybody's wondering whether he's coming out of college or not, going to turn pro. And 3 rounds later, Jeremy Swayman just flying under the radar. Didn't have the greatest year in the USHL, at least statistically. Allowed 10 empty net goals. He's got to really work on that, and it looked like he did in Maine. But Maine saw something in him. The Boston Bruins saw something in Jeremy Swayman, and they let him just evolve and grow into himself as a goaltender. And 3 years later, he's the best goalie in college hockey. He is turning professional, and the Boston Bruins really look like they've hit something on this 4th round pick. And his goalie coach at Maine is a former Vancouver Canuck. There's the tie-in with Quinn Hughes, and when you loop it all back in, the Lower Mainland with Alfie Michaud, who played 2 games, and Jeremy Swayman came together, and it was a blossoming relationship that has now hit the National Hockey League for Jeremy Swayman, who is turning pro with the Boston Bruins right in the middle of this pause. And he joined us along with Alfie Michaud in a conversation with Kevin Woodley on In Goal Radio, the podcast. This is our feature interview on this episode of the pod.
So this is a new thing in the In Goal Radio podcast. We're going to have 2 guests at the same time. And in the world we live in today, that means a Zoom call with the 3 of us. Alfie Michaud and Jeremy Swayman. Guys, let's just forget the intros. This has been a couple of weeks, especially for you, Jeremy. And Alfie, I'm guessing you as a proud coach. What's it been like the last couple of weeks? Mike Richter Award as a top goaltender in the NCAA, Hobey Baker finalists, and signing your first National Hockey League contract with the Boston Bruins. What's this been like? And I guess part 2 is what has it been like having to do it all from home and over calls like this?
It's been pretty incredible, Kevin. I know it's not ideal how it all worked out at the end of the season and so abruptly, but I've tried to enjoy every moment, and I've been so honored to be a part of some of the awards I've been chosen for and been chosen to be in the running for. So again, I understand the magnitude of the awards I've gotten, but again, that doesn't happen with the people that have helped me along the way, especially my goalie coach here, Alfie Michaud, and the guys in front of me battling all year.
What goes into the thought process of making that step to turning pro? I know it's not an easy one. I mean, and how much do you lean on? Alfie's there probably a little biased saying, hey, kid, come on back. We could use it for another year. How, I'm guessing there has to be a lot of trust in that relationship when you guys talk about things like that. Either one of you, how can you walk me through what that process is like and how much communication, obviously you and your family, Jeremy, but with a guy like Alfie to lean on as someone who's been there and done that?
Well, that's exactly why I took it. I knew that going into Maine, I had leaders that have been through pro ranks, and a big thing for me was having that mentality of going into college and getting the experience I need in order to be a professional. But the greatest thing I learned, especially my freshman year, was focusing on the moment. And if you focus on the moment and do your job where you're at any given time, you're going to get to where you want to be in pro ranks. And being able to look up to a goalie coach like Alfie, who carries himself with such a professional attitude in everything he does, I couldn't have asked for much more. And I know that the experience I gained in the last 3 years is really going to help me in the long run.
So I don't know. People can't see the smile Alfie's got going. See, I know Alfie, so I'm like, really, this guy? No, I'm just kidding. What kind of advice? What do you tell him, Alfie? Because there's got to be a little part of you that wants him back. I mean, such a big part of your team, but this is part of coaching in the NCAA. You kind of constantly having to turn guys over, and I'm guessing that's a positive too, right? When you got guys heading off to the pros.
Sure, it's that's what we're here for. We're a development league to the National Hockey League. So for me, I look back at my career. I left after my junior year because I thought I was ready to play pro. So I'd be a little bit of a hypocrite if I told him he should stay. We talked at length. We thought he's ready to move on to the next level. I just gave him essentially the pros and cons, or more the pros than anything, and just more than anything, just told him that when he makes this decision, it's on him. He doesn't have to worry about what Boston is saying. Like, he's got to do it for himself. But we discussed, and his body of work over the 3 years have shown the way he's been progressing, that he's ready for another challenge. And kind of proud papa moment. You're excited for him, and you want to see him excel at the next level.
Okay, so walk me through that development. What in your mind, Jeremy? What are the biggest things? And you're speaking to an audience of goaltenders, so you can get specific. What's improved? What's been your focus over these 3 years? Like, what's allowed you to have this success and feel like you're ready for pro? What are some of the biggest keys to you?
Countless. It's just every day seemed like a new learning tool. But I mean, you can't buy experience, and you can't rush experience. And so when I came into college, I had a lot of goals and aspirations for myself, and of course the team too. And I was very, motivated and driven from the get-go. But I also know that got me caught up in a few things, and I wasn't being, the best teammate I could be. I wasn't being, the best leader I could be, because I wanted to win so badly and win so badly for myself, rather. And I just think that, the big keys for me that I learned over the 3 years was hockey's a team game, and you're not going to win without the guys in front of you and supporting the guys in front of you. And I think just taking the role of making sure that, guys are going to battle for you, because, you're going to battle for them just as hard. And the big thing for me was just simplifying things, and Alfie helped me so much with that, especially the off ice mentality stuff, because you got to step away from the rink and simplify things in your life too. So I think just focusing on where my 2 feet are at any given moment helped me the most, and not making a game bigger than it is, and just keeping things simple helped me the most.
I've heard you already said one shot at a time mentality earlier in the conversation. Like, that's something we hear from goaltenders at every level, right up to the NHL. It's usually the easiest thing to say and one of the hardest things to do, no matter what level you're playing at. So Alfie, what advice did he give him that allowed him to, or how did you guys get to that together, to that point where you could truly feel like you were embracing that philosophy and employing it on the ice?
I think just hearing it every day. He's a very focused individual. He set a lot of goals for himself. So my big thing with him was just making sure he's where his feet are at every day. He'd talk about maybe BU on Friday night, or BC, or UNH, and how big those games are. And this was Monday, and it was always coming back to what we got to do today. In our world, we got to, the good guys, I think, are really good at staying in the moment. And so we really focused on in the moment. Today's skating day. We're going to work on skating, and today's about being the best you possibly can be in skating. Maybe a next day is minimal movement day, just not moving a lot, bringing out the poles and the strings, and just having them play in between his posts, and harping on it over and over. And I'm sure he gets sick of my voice at times, but it's times where I'd be watching the other goalie at the other end, and you look down and you see him not doing what we want to do, or he's a little bit out of character or out of his focus that he's supposed to be working on, and skate down and just bark something at him that hopefully snaps him into what we're trying to accomplish that day. And he's a student of the game. He listens, and which is nice. Our relationship, we have a great relationship, but a lot of times it's just a case of 1 or 2 words said, and that just snap them back. But over time, a lot of repetition, no question.
Jeremy, you talked about being a team guy, and maybe at times earlier in your career being individually focused, or focused on your thing, like not in a bad way, but I'm guessing you meant focus on your own development or what you needed to do. Can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, because I guess that would be a big part of heading to college. You're with older players that when you first get there. What did you mean by that? Can you give me an example, or an example that maybe some other kids might glom onto and see that, hey, I'm doing that too. Maybe I need to rethink how I'm approaching things.
Well, obviously with goalie, a dog eat dog mentality almost, because you want to play so bad and there's only 3 guys on a team, especially at college. And, you want to do everything you possibly can to get playing time. But I just learned that, I can have that mentality, but make it in a positive way. And in order to push my other goalies, you can make it a friendly competition instead of having, bad relationships with the other goalies. And I know this year, especially, I had the best relationship with my 2 other goalie partners I've ever had on any team. And we push each other every day in the best way possible. And I think that's why we got results out of each other, especially come Friday, Saturday night. And, having that goalie love and having each other's backs was so important for me. And I think Alfie did a great job with that. We had meetings right off the bat, making sure that we were on the same page with that thing. And so it was really cool to have a trio of goalies that were just, looking out for each other this year. And I think that's what helped me the most, for sure.
Well, it's a question for both of you, because we hear this at the NHL level a lot. Whenever you run into a situation where a team ends up with 3 goalies, whether it's waivers or whatever. And pardon my ignorance if I don't know what the structure of an NCAA practice looks like in terms of, are 3 guys always out there, or do you rotate through it? But how do you guys manage that? Because it seems to me at the NHL level, there's been a lot of talk about practice goalies maybe being beneficial, and yet the common denominator we always go back to is 3 doesn't go into 2. So how do you guys make 3 go into 2 and make that work on a day-to-day basis at the NCAA level and find positives like that?
What we do first and foremost, we have plenty of time in college hockey through the week. So we always try to get our individual skills in the morning. Jumping on ice with just Jeremy for 45 minutes and giving him his goalie love, and probably setting up for our weekend competitor. So we're starting to put drills into place. So he's getting plenty of work through the day in the morning, and then come afternoon when we were skating at 2:00, he already got his real bulk of goalie work in, and what we thought he needed for the upcoming week. And this might start on Monday and run right through until Thursday, where we get a little bit of work, goalie specific or drill specific, whether it's to play against the power play or Boston College, for instance, a great rush hockey team. So simulating that kind of stuff. And then come practice time, it's about him getting reps, but at the same time managing his workload. Sometimes we just looked at that Tuesday morning, this is his workload. Those 45 minutes are his real hard work. And then practice time, it's not that he's going through the motions, but he's picking his spots when to get at it. And then obviously Matt Thiessen and Mundinger are getting their work, and they just rotate on a carousel, much like maybe I would have did as a peewee or a midget, and you're stuck in those 3-man rotations early in the season. But there's times you chase him in the net because I felt it was an important drill that he needed. So there'd be times I'd skate on, like, get in there, go get your work, because he was our number 1 guy. So obviously you want him to get the bulk of the work and that. But and our group knew. We talked about it. So yeah, it's kind of how we managed it.
So what's his next step like, Jeremy? This is tough being you're back home in Alaska right now. You've signed a pro contract, and yet all of us are in this giant pause. What have been the conversations like with the Bruins? Have they got you? Are they asking you to do anything in particular? How do you try and stay sharp? I've talked to a number of guys over these past couple of weeks about some of the things they can try and do to stay sharp and even get better when they can't actually get on the ice. Are there anything you've found, anything that they've suggested that you think you might incorporate here in the next little while? Or is it just you're still trying to recover from busiest goaltender in the NCAA with close to 1,100 saves this year?
Yeah, well, no, they've been hands-on with everything. And of course I have the main staff to lean on too still. And, I've been doing everything I can possibly to keep my body in shape and prepare for my first pro season. Obviously not skating is a challenge, but for that instant, everyone in the world's not skating too. So we're all on the same page kind of, and that's never happened before. And so I know Alf and I have talked about this, but, this is truly the only time ever that, everyone's on the same page, and we're all going to be, there's no really advantages or disadvantages on where you are. So I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage of this opportunity and, be absolutely prepared to come into camp this summer and get to work. So what I'm doing is I'm getting outside. I'm fortunate to be up in Alaska, and there's plenty of mountains. So I'm keeping it in my routine as a mountain a day and a workout. So it's pretty good. But, it's good to get out of the house. As far as off-ice training, I just ordered a pitching machine that I used at Maine, actually, and that works on my hand-eye. Got these little foam balls, ping-pong-sized balls.
Okay, I'm going to need more details here because we actually just did a story, or I did for NHL.com, and we're following it up at InGoal because we talked to Jonathan Bernier and Montreal Canadiens AHL goalie coach Marco Marciano has preached the tennis balls for years and specific mechanics and catching and a lot of really cool details. Had Jake Allen on the line a couple weeks ago, and he said the same thing. So is this the skills? Is this the little skills pitching machine with the mini foam balls that does the curves?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to know how this works as a goaltender because our co-host here, David Hutchison, who's not in on this interview, as soon as we started talking about this last night, he ordered one on Amazon for his son. So you guys walk me through how this can make you a better goaltender and how you guys use it. Jeremy, now in Alaska and when you're down in Maine, Alfie. We'll start with you, Jeremy.
Well, I can't take the credit for finding it. Alf did find it. And, I was kind of sitting in the locker room. He didn't say much about it. And he just said, yeah, just go use it. And I'll be honest, I didn't use it as much as I did this year, my sophomore year. And obviously, we could tell that there was a big difference. I was a lot of bounce outs my sophomore year and I wasn't seeing the puck in all the way. And when I started using this, Tease and I would use it probably every day when our schedules worked. And he'd move it around, and so I can get glove and blocker going. And we had fun with it. Not only was it great bonding, but it was good work. And just seeing because those things are kind of randomized, right? You don't really know where the ball's going, and some come fast and some come slow.
So they don't cut. They don't. It's like a puck. Those old puck shooting machines, Alfie? They don't come out consistent.
No, they try to come out, but sometimes they get jammed. So now you're waiting and you're kind of whoa, and those ones I usually point right at him and tell him to absorb it with his stomach, drop the hips, and eat pucks that way. But it's just a fun way to get together. I know Sway and I we've had challenges and done it, and the big thing, honestly, really is trying to just him focusing on getting his eyes, his nose right on his hands, and just having soft hands. I grew up in the 80s, and baseball and other sports were really prevalent, and I was a big baseball guy, and I just think the hands are different back then than they are now. Kids tend to go at pucks a little more, opposed to maybe the old school guy likes to receive things and a lot more wrist flexion. So we really worked hard on that of just absorbing everything, and it's a great machine. I saw it. I was up in New Brunswick actually, and the first time I saw it was at Jake's goalie camp in the summer, and so I get up to Fredericton every summer, and it was their goalie coach at UND had it with the kids, and and then I brought it home. I picked one up right then and there because it's a lot easier to get that kind of stuff. And in Canada, that seems hockey specific. So I grabbed one and brought it home, and my girls used it for softball, and then obviously brought it to the rink. The goalies use it for their hands, and some of our players have used it to work on tipping pucks. So it's just a fun thing, and like Jeremy said, a lot of it you're just bonding. He was with Tease a lot doing it, and I know him and I done it where I've gone and shot balls at him, and he's thrown me in the ringer and had to face some shots too.
So it sounds though, Jeremy, like you felt the difference, and it's interesting, Alfie. You talk about receiving pucks. We've had this conversation in recent months. Dusty Emu, a guy who talks a lot about absorbing pucks and receiving pucks versus the sort of new mentality of kind of almost, moving towards them and almost, I don't want to say blocky because that's not the intent, but it can get, there's a little less catching of pucks. And Emu's talked about it. We had Billy Ranford on a call recently where he talked about it, the same thing. So, Jeremy, it sounded like you noticed a difference with this.
I definitely did. Yeah, it was just, again, just that receiving. I used to fight pucks off a lot, and that's just like not necessary. Just seeing the puck all the way in and just tracking really helped me.
Okay, so last one on I promise this will be the last one on the ball machine, but everybody is looking for ways that they can stay sharp when they can't get on the ice. And like I said, we're going to follow this up because it seems like a legit one. How'd you set it up? Because I've seen on some of the videos with regards to this thing, like if you put that thing close to you, she's trucking close to 100 miles an hour relative speed. Like, are you going across the room? Or it depend how badly you wanted to get Alfie back?
Yeah. I don't know. Alfie, we're probably 18, 20 feet.
Yeah, I'd say. And
sitting on our knees.
And I do the shooting. I hold the tube and I switch so he can see that I'm switching angles or switching to his blocker side or glove side. And we even change heights, right? Sometimes where he's working on catching balls 4 to 6 inches off the ground or catching one that's going to go under the bar. So he's, but he can see that. But we just played around with it. You got to play with the distance to make it kind of feel realistic. Because, like you said, if we're 8 feet apart, there's no chance,
It says it's 100 miles an hour at 18 feet, so it's coming.
Yeah, it's we just figured it out until we got the distance, and then that we felt was right and felt like a puck coming off the stick from probably inside the tops of the circles, and then I'm trying to look here. I'm trying to weigh out a puck here, so you're probably looking at probably 20 feet, 22 feet.
Yeah, 90 to 100 miles an hour. That sounds like a pretty good speed, at least according to their charts. I think that I'm going to need to go invest in this piece of equipment before we launch this podcast, just to get a head start, because I have a hunch between Bernier and you guys and Jake Allen and the stuff we put together, we may suddenly see a run on these skills baseball shooting machines for goalies in the next few weeks.
All three of our goalies coming back next year. I already started the text messaging with the group of 3 for next season, and all 3 have ordered it, and they're all gonna play around with it. Like you said, it's a lot of fun.
We're gonna create a scarcity of those things. People won't be able to find them within a couple of weeks. So hey, that was I love that. That's a great tip. Anything else that you guys focus on? Like you said, Jeremy, so much over 3 years. In terms of fundamentals, Alfie, you talked to, you said it changed every day. Skating days. I can picture those posts out in front of Jeremy. I'm sure he loved those too, especially when the shooters would bring it off those posts out in front of you, sort of identifying the net in front of you instead of the net behind you. Are there's some that jump out as bigger strides for you, Jeremy, than others in terms of something that, turned a light bulb on that you hadn't maybe thought of before? Is it just always a gradual arc of improvement?
I think it's definitely been a good arc of improvement each year. What I learned mostly was that, off ice work is just as important as on ice work, and recovery is a big aspect in that. I was fortunate to get a good workload and, a lot of work these last 3 years, and recovery was one of the most important things in order to play just as well as you did Friday night on Saturday night. And I was fortunate to have a lot of great veterans throughout my freshman, sophomore, and now junior year. And I saw what it was like. I saw what it took to recover and what you had to do. And of course, my trainer, Matt Murray, did a great job with that. And so just the aspects of that, making sure I'm doing what I need to do for my body to be prepared, for a back-to-back weekend. And I think that was a big stride I took this year for sure.
Can you guys walk us through? Alfie's got the hands up. Some specifics there too, in terms of what we hear recovery. Are we talking foam rolling, or what are your keys to making sure you're recovered one night to the next?
Well, I think a big thing is we train with heart rate monitors. We got the catapult system, so for me and working with our strength coach Matt Murray, we can see Jeremy's training load every single day for the last 3 years. That includes all the games. So we have numbers that we want to hit daily on him. So I can go in, the data gets brought up to the office, and every guy uses that. But there's days where, Monday, Tuesday, maybe we worked him a little too hard, so I can look at his numbers and talk to Matt and say, what do you think? And he's like, maybe no goalie session today, take it out, and maybe no lifting for him. Maybe it's just a foam rolling and a soft tissue day, and just for him to recover that extra day. And that data has been, honestly, I didn't believe in it when I first started it, but it's been vital for our hockey club. I know it's been great for me. I'm getting to the point where I can hit a number. If Matt says training load, expend 15% today, it's like, okay, I'm pretty bang on a 35 minute goalie work session where we're hitting those numbers that can carry on to the evening practice. I think that's been huge. And then for Jeremy, I think we really dove into box control this year and the pulls and just less extension. He has a great compete level. He's a great athlete, but there's at times you really extended on pucks. And, my whole thing is whatever gets away from the midline, it always has to come back, and if your skates leave the ice, guess what? They got to come back to the ice before you can go anywhere. So we really focused hard on those little details of making sure the skates are really close to the ice. When he's extending his knee outside his hip, if he's doing it, it's got to be for a reason, and not just do it to look flashy. And there's many times we have a great relationship where I chirp him. I'll chirp him in practice and say, listen, is that for the girl in section 17 up there? The big windmill glove save, because to me, it's pointless. It's wasted energy, and it's putting him out of position to make a second save if he needs to. So I was a minimalist when I was a player, because you're 5'10", you got to really think it and keep everything tight, because like I said, being a smaller goalie, you're always extending, it feels. And these big guys, if you can get them where they're not extending and they can keep everything nice and tight, it's just an advantage for them for sure.
What about for you, Jeremy, that process of, I've seen Alfie at camps in the summers working with some of these goalie coaches that bring out the bars, the 2 posts in front of you, that smaller net, and the concept. And it's been easy for me to see it work with these other coaches, but the whole concept that if you're in position, that puck's probably coming at you. What was that process of getting to the point where you trust that?
Well, just like, Alfie said, I was a student of the game. He is too. And he constantly goes out and reaches out to coaches. So he's learning just as much as I am every day. And so it's really fun to come to the rink and, he has something new to tell me. But as far as that goes, I think the biggest thing was just simplifying for me. He knew my strengths with skating, my skating ability, and, he helped me work and fine tune that. And truthfully, I did get extended a lot. And, I would end up, I'd do a big butterfly from, one dot to the other, butterfly slide, and then I'd end up outside the post, and when it just really wasn't necessary, because, I do have a big frame, and I know that I can cover, net without doing extremely, big acrobatic saves and acrobatic movements. So basically just finding my posts and understanding, especially those external posts in the practice, helped me so much. So I could see, if I put my glove, just an inch outside of my body, it's covering the angle. And just understanding the angles of where pucks were coming from helped me so much. And it got to a point where I could literally just visualize it. And I knew that if a puck passed a certain part of the ice coming down, the neutral zone, I knew where to be on angle. And I didn't have to be outside my crease necessarily. I could just be, heels on the top of the crease or toes on the top of the crease and still have my depth that I needed in order to cover most of the net. And so that helped me a lot, and just visualizing, every day helped me a lot too. So I was happy with that.
Now, were you a backwards flow guy before that? Like, were you a guy that would take ice and give it up in the face of a rush like that, versus now just sort of staying on angle? And I have no idea of your background, so I'm just guessing based on your description that might be the case.
Yeah, I was very aggressive, and I knew I could be, because I thought I was athletic enough to, in order to be aggressive. And then say 2-on-1, I would be able to back up and possibly get to that, far slide. But then you're playing a BC who can, sauce a puck and make a play, and, you'd have an empty net. And so I started to gain a lot of trust from my defense, especially as the years went on. And I had a great relationship with that. We'd have defensive meetings and I would be a part of them. And I think that helped a ton, with my trust and not having to play as aggressive and just really focusing on the shot I needed to save, and letting my defense do his job. And that took a lot of stress off me, especially. But as far as, just understanding that I didn't have to have the extreme, push out and then having to cut, 3-4 times before I had to go to the back post, that helped me a ton because big thing I learned is that you can't make a save when you're moving as good as you can when you're set. And being set for pucks helped me tremendously this year, especially just knowing that, if you're going to go from a goal line out, below the goal line out shot, you're going to have to set your feet. And it doesn't mean you have to get depth at the top of your crease every time to do that.
Especially when you're 6'3". Alfie didn't have that. He didn't have that luxury.
No, not at all. No, but he worked hard at that because he was, there was times he'd get locked up, he'd get out there, and he worked hard on, I think it's great to have flow, but then to, there's very minimal flow too. There's different types, of course, and I think every goalie's different. I always said, and I tell Jeremy this, like when I coach all three of our goalies, we have Thiessen 6'2", Sway is 6'3", and Steven Mundinger is 6'8". So 3 different goalies, 3 different abilities, 3 different sizes. And my big thing is the big guy upstairs made each and every one of us different. So like I coach every guy different. Sway's flow is different than what Matt Thiessen's going to be and what Mundinger was. And I think where Jeremy got really good is just having good flow to his game. And he's very minimal. He's probably traveling backwards, but it's a little flick of the big toe is what we say, and so he's got just a little bit. But Matt Thiessen might, he might have a bigger C cut and have more flow in his game. I think it's a thing you just got to keep working on. And there's times in the game, Sway was great because he wanted input even in a game, which doesn't come around very much because I know as a goalie, I didn't want anybody to talk to me outside of the hockey piece, but to have a goalie coach come down and want to talk goalie with me in the middle of the game, that for me, that wouldn't have worked. But with Sway, I'm on the bench, obviously, and he'd look at me and give me the nod, and I'd go down and be like, hey, these guys they're quick tonight, and I just think you're just to smidge it off, maybe drop it back 6 inches, on your depth just to catch up and get that confidence. And then maybe he can creep back out on his depth again. And there's days that you don't always have your A game, so you got to figure it out mentally. And that's something I probably learned over all the years I played, and probably never figured it out until I was 32, 33. But I think it's my job to help these young guys and accelerate the process. And I know that's something we talked about a lot. And like I said, in game, Sway and I are into it much like a defenseman coach is coaching his D. During TV timeouts, I'm usually down at the end with him, and I'll let him do his little ritual and his thing. But then we'll talk about something, whether on the PP, something he's going to see right away, or a little reminder, or something as simple as just dropping his depth back just a little bit until he catches up. Because there's games you get in there and it's fast. As much as you're prepared, it seems fast. And I remember that was one thing. I think it was Minnesota Duluth last year, Sway, first game of the year. They came at us hard first period, and he just come and looked at me like eyes wide, and I said, just drop it back 6 inches and it's going to slow down for you. And he did. He dropped it back in his blue paint, and then he just come back and he looks at me and he gives me the "you're a genius" kind of deal. And I was like, no, it's my job to recognize those things. And we talk about it all the time. Like I said, it definitely helps being there and having those experiences and feeling those things, because then I can hopefully get into his goalie mind a bit and help settle things down.
Jeremy, have you always solicited advice during a game? Like, is that something you've always been comfortable with?
Absolutely. I think that the more information you can get from someone else is only a gift. It's kind of like, I would want every aspect. I love hearing, guys on the bench, saying, "Hey, like watch back door. He's been creeping. He's been cheating on me." And then having Alf, who's been scouting him all week, and he's been watching video every day, and he knows what's going to happen. And of course, I do too. We go over video throughout the week, but I'm just saying, it's good to have a pair of eyes on the bench that sees the rush from a different angle. And it's honestly, it's a no-brainer in my opinion to get different opinions during the game, because you could see a lot in the goalie in the goal crease, but you don't see everything all the time. And just getting different perspectives, even from my goalie partner. Mundinger, I'd always go to him and have my water, and he'd say, "Hey, they're attacking the net. They're going to brush you a little bit to just be on your toes and make sure you're seeing the puck." So I thought, I've been very vocal. I don't have a problem with talking, in between whistles. I think it just keeps me in the game. And that's a big thing I've worked on too, is just being vocal and making sure that I'm doing things in order, even if it's a slow game, that helps a lot. Just skating in the corners and, making eye contact with people and making sure that, I'm focused on the game. But that's helped me a lot. And, I definitely think that, sharing things like that throughout the game is important.
It sounds like it helps you stay engaged. It's usually a fine line for goalies, Alfie, too, between, important information and what guys maybe would take that information and start overthinking. So I guess you got to approach it differently with each guy, because I can think of some pro goalies I know over the years that they would have locked themselves up mentally overthinking that little piece of advice between periods, let alone, during the game.
Yeah, for me, I was one of those goalies that wouldn't have wanted any information. I was the, in my own little world. But it's something Jeremy and I talked about. Obviously, I asked him before we started doing this, do you want this stuff? And he was, yes. And you see how he is. Like, he's a guy that he's skating down the bench in between timeouts, chit-chatting with guys. I've seen, if you get onto his Twitter or Instagram, there's actual pictures of him like winking at the camera. So, and I've seen him do selfies by the bench with kids. So he's into it. He loves it. He's one of those guys that can, leave the game for those split seconds, but then being able to come back in and refocus and go perform. And I think that takes a special cat to do that. Because like I said, I was the guy that, outside of looking up at the clock, I wasn't looking much above the dasher. I went for my skates and stuff like that, but I wasn't looking in the crowd. I wasn't, it was on puck and playing hockey. But he's a guy that he found a way to enjoy it. He's got a little bit of Marty Brodeur in him, as far as just loving the game of hockey and being able to separate in between whistles to kind of enjoy the moment. And I think that's great. If you can do that and it doesn't affect your performance, which it hasn't with him, I think that's great. I wish I could have did it. Believe me, I was absolutely exhausted after a hockey game because of what I put into it and the focus that it kind of took to stay into it for those 3,600 seconds plus. And I feel like he's refreshed after a game because he's nice and relaxed, and he just had the time of his life playing hockey. And I think it's great. That's going to serve him well, believe me, going forward.
Okay, now it sounds like he's instantly going to be one of our, favorite goaltenders as a pro. So I'm liking all this stuff, especially because that means he's relaxed enough to talk on game days like Marty was. At least I'm guessing that. Might hold you to that at some point down the road here, Jeremy. But I did hear at some point in there when you said he came to the bench to talk to you, you let him do his little ritual. So that leads me to the question: do we have some rituals, Jeremy? Do we have some? Or are we still have some fun with some? We won't call them superstitions, but little things we got to do in between whistles and periods and getting ready to play. Give me a few, and how do you find that line between habits and superstitions?
Well, just like Alfie said, I could turn it off and then turn it right back on again. And that's something I've had to work at. it's not easy to do because I'd get so puck focused and so narrowed down. I think that's when I really had problems focusing, was when I tried to focus so hard and I tried to make the game, harder than it really is, and didn't have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it's a hockey game. It's fun to be out there. It's fun to be under the lights. And that's what I enjoy. And, it's an entertainment business. So, I want to be a part of it just as much as the fans, and, it's fun. I have fun doing it. But as far as my ritual goes, I do follow something. It's just a routine that works for me. But what I do it every time I come to the bench, go to, Mundinger's side, and, he'll give me a towel, do the towel face swap, look around, get some water. When I do a little squirt, I think I learned it from Holtby back in the day. I squirt the water bottle. I just watch one droplet fall down, and that kind of refocuses me, just simple things like that. And then after that, put my mask down, pat my hands. I get pretty sweaty hands, so I just pat them down, dry them off, and then go down the bench and just say, hey, keep it going, boys. And then go pat Thiessen on the head, and then go right back to the net, and, game on again. It's not hard for me to do that because it's just something I enjoy. But yeah, that's what works for me. And then, going to the bench helps a lot too, because you're alone down there, especially in those slow games. I think a slow game where you're getting 5-8 shots a period is harder than a game you're getting, 15 to 17 shots a period. So, just not getting in my own head and making sure that I'm vocal and still talking and I'm in tune with the game helps me a lot.
Sounds like pretty good advice, because you're exactly right. We hear it right up to the NHL level to this day. Give me a game where I've got 35, not the game where I have 21. And it is hard for guys to find that focus. Sounds like you've found a nice balance. Was that just an evolution? You arrived at that over time, or was there anybody you worked with from a sports psychology standpoint that helped just sort of, or even Alfie as a goalie coach helped just sort of get to that?
Well, again, I can't take credit for, all of the things, it's people I've surrounded me by, and Alfie's been the biggest, asset for me in that. And we had Doc Wally this year, Wally Bizdell. He was a great sports psychologist. I've actually had him since my freshman year. And, he took the time to really create a good relationship with me. And, I think, again, I soak up everything like a sponge. I'm not going to, have a judgment and say, I don't want to do that. I'm going to give everything a chance. And I think, having that mentality of opening up your knowledge to different things helped a lot. And, I now know I have a good understanding. I haven't perfected it by any means. I still have a lot to learn. But now I know certain things that work for me, and the mental aspect of things is crucial. And the biggest thing, Alfie's, that stuck with me the most is just making things simple. We have a saying, it's not rocket science. And I actually have that on my helmet for next year. I'm going to put it on my helmet. And, it's just a simple thing like that it's such a true statement, and it doesn't seem like it means a lot, but it really is. It's a game, and, you love doing it, and it's not hard when, you're having fun doing it. So I think that's worked for me in the mental aspect of things, and just not making things bigger than they are.
Okay, so I got this. I feel like we got to sort of start to put a bow on this, because I've taken up way too much of your time. Alfie's kids are going to kill him for taking up the internet for the whole day here and kicking them off to stay live with us. I want to know where this relationship began, because I'd love to get a glimpse. Alfie, I've seen you during your recruiting trips. Whenever you get out to the West Coast, and every time we get a chance to even catch up while we're watching it, or while you're watching a game and I'm bending your ear, it's always enjoyable. I want to get a little glimpse into life of recruiting and how you ended up meeting Jeremy. How you built the relationship that led to the trust that had him choose Maine. What that process is like from both of you guys. I don't know which one of you wants to start, but how'd you guys come together? How did this relationship begin building?
Just like this. Came over a call like this. Wasn't Zoom, it was Skype. I was the volunteer goalie coach then. So in the recruiting process, obviously watched video on him and different things, but I was traveling doing my, we've talked, Woody, that I was doing my native stuff, doing camps, and I don't know if I was in Boston or one of the airports, and Jeremy called me because he was in on his physical recruiting trip, and I was out doing my stuff, my goalie school stuff, and I couldn't get back in time to see him during his official trip. So we did a Skype call and probably talked 30 minutes on goalies and why I thought Maine would be a good fit. And I think we just kind of hit it off there. And then wasn't until he got in for summer bridge. So all our freshmen come in beginning of August for that whole month, just the freshmen. And that's where the relationship really built because he was the only freshman goalie. So we definitely spent a lot of time talking per NCAA rules. I can't work with him during that time, but it's probably great because we just spend time in the office and talking and, going for a cup of coffee and just, it's all about personal relationships with these kids and, being genuine and being me and, and hopefully he likes what I'm going to bring to the table and everything we do as a staff. And I'm sure it's across the board for NCAA and CHL. Everything we do is for these kids and we just want them to know that. And, I think that's how we built it.
What about you, Jeremy? You went from, you're playing hockey up in Alaska to USHL to Maine. Like, walk me through that process and what stage this would be, because I'm trying to do the math on, Alfie would have been the assistant in 16, 17. I'm looking at hockey DBs and trying to put it all together. But like for you to leave home to go to the USHL and then to end up at Maine, like, are there any lessons there that you could share? Because we got a lot of listeners, whether it's parents of young goalies that are facing some of these decisions, or the goalies themselves on the In Goal Radio podcast that want to hear from guys that went through the experience. So what were the tough points? What led you to Maine? How tough was it to leave home? A lot of questions all in one. I'm not very good at my job, so I'm just going to throw them all at you at once.
Oh, Kev, you're great. I actually had a pretty crazy path. We don't have to get into that too deep right now, but I actually went to Colorado Springs my junior year of high school. So I was away from home my junior year, and that wasn't planned. I actually got cut from the Vancouver Brown Bears in the North American League, and after I tendered my U16 year, so there was a kind of like a scramble to find a team for my U18 year because I was completely planning on being in junior hockey my junior year of high school, and so that was like everything kind of came to a crazy halt, on my hockey career, and I didn't know where to play, so I ended up getting connected with a team in Colorado Springs with a great coach called Greg Vanover. Who truly changed my life. He's right up there with Alfie. So that's saying a lot, And so anyway, after that year, I ended up making the USHL in Sioux Falls. And so I already had a year under my belt of living away from home. So I had it all down. Granted, I was blessed with an incredible billet family and the situation was incredible. And so going to play my first year of juniors as a senior in high school was even better because I had a great, Sioux Falls, by far one of the greatest USHL programs with the amazing arena, amazing fans and everything. So I was blessed with that opportunity and another great billet family there. And, I was in high school still, so I was even more embraced with the community. And, we had a good high school group there. So USHL was a great experience for me. Even though we didn't have a great winning, record, I got a ton of experience and, having the amount of shots and workload I did there, I think only helped me. And I took that as a positive. I definitely want to win, bottom line. Winning's everything to me. But, that year definitely helped me understand, I did my job and I had to be satisfied with that. But again, I was also extremely hard on myself saying that, I could have done better in certain things. And I didn't have a full-time goalie coach until Alfie Michaud too. And so I didn't have a full-time. I worked with Dave Rogalski. He was a Minnesota guy and he came once a month and he was a great too. So, I've definitely had great mentors. And then I worked with Steve Thompson. He's with USA Hockey now in Alaska. So again, that helped me too. But yeah, so when I had the opportunity to talk to Alfie and knew that he was going to be a full-time goalie coach for the first time, that was special to me. And I knew that was going to be, my first ever real goalie coach, goalie relationship throughout a season. And so that was exciting for me. And, after that conversation we had just on Skype alone, that changed me because he preached that, he wasn't going to change me as a goalie. He was going to take me and just perfect certain things. He wasn't going to say, oh, this is how I want you to play. This is what I want you to do. He was just he knew I had, skating abilities. He knew my strengths. I didn't know my strengths. I just wanted to stop the puck, and he saw these things in me. And that was special to me. It's like, how can you take this goalie that didn't have a great winning record and have this much trust and faith in him? And for him to take a chance on me and give me all these pointers and truly believe in me, that was big for me. And that goes for the whole Maine staff as well. And, again, when I went on my visit, everything was great. But the thing that brought me there the most was that not only did they want to improve me as a player, but they wanted to improve me as a person. And that was a big thing for me, because I knew that I needed to get some true maturity under my belt, and doing that at the college level with coaching staff like the University of Maine. That was a good formula I wanted to have.
It's funny. Dave Rogalski, another name that worked with Charlie Lindgren, who is another guest on the podcast right ahead of you guys. So from baseballs with Jake Allen, in Alfie seeing that for the first time, to you guys using that same pitching machine, to all these different connections in the goalie world. It's funny, Alfie? It is a small world, isn't it, buddy? Sometimes you discover just how small when you're at a goalie symposium in a Nashville bar after a day of learning about goalies too, eh?
No question. It is a small world. It's a great world to be a part of, no question. And I'm just thankful I'm part of the fraternity, and I'm sure Sway is too. And love every minute of it. No question.
Well, we're going to have to save the Jan Stastny story for another day, Alfie, because I do want to catch up. That's the Nashville connection there. I do want to catch up a little bit on your career, because I know there's some hella stories that can be told throughout that career and your path, starting in the NHL with the Canucks and then overseas and in the minors and all the different things you learned. I think we've learned from listening to you and Jeremy talk today about just how much knowledge you've soaked up over the years. So I'm going to hold you to another call one of these days, and we're going to get you back on.
I'd love to anytime.
And Jeremy, I'm looking forward to following your career as a pro as it takes that next step. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person once we get out of all this crazy time that we're all trying to stay safe in. But you guys, I can't thank you enough. We're close to an hour here. It's been a great conversation. I've learned a ton, and I'm looking forward to learning more the next time we get to catch up.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Kev.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
That was fun, really cool. And I wrote something down as I was listening. I listened to this interview twice. Don't always do that, but listen to it twice before we put the show together, because there was so much in it. And two things. One, if you're a goaltender playing in any league but the National Hockey League, you should listen to that interview. You should be exposed to that conversation between Alfie and Jeremy, because there's so much there about just growth as a person and as a goaltender, what you do, how you process it, and how you put it to work. And that goes with a lot of our interviews in that journey. The other one is there's a lot of little things in the conversation, and this is right underneath with my second point. The next time I play, I said, listen to this conversation again, because the little things about stepping back when things get fast, like something like that, and if your knee is outside like your hips, that Alfie Michaud dropped that little bit of reference, and I'd never heard that before. But just tactically and being in control, I thought there was some little gems in there that made for a really interesting conversation. What do you think, Hutch?
I'm curious, as you just talk about the knee outside the hip, because we've been doing some Adam Francilia workouts here, and Alfie and Adam will have crossed paths at Net 360 in Kelowna, and that is one of the teaching points for some of the work that we're doing here in the gym. The home gym, that is, knee has to stay inside. So interesting tie-in, and maybe we'll get Adam to give us a little comment on that, because he's putting some content together for us as well right now. I love the interview because of the differing personalities that were teaming up for such, a special season. And as a teacher, I love that that Alfie mentioned the fact that he treats every athlete that he works with differently. So often we hear everybody has to be the same and we have to be fair. But no, he understands that there's differing personalities at work. He treats them differently and teaches them differently, and didn't just that image of the two of them on the bench together, on the ice together.
Yeah.
With those differing personalities, the fact that Alfie basically said he could never play the way that Swayman does. And Swayman is sort of verging on Fleury, it sounds like, in his playfulness with the game as well, which I think is fantastic. So just a lot of fun that these two guys can combine for something so special, would it?
Yeah, kudos to Hutch for the idea of talking to them both at the same time. I got to be honest with you, when I originally sort of approached the idea of combining the interview, I was a little bit nervous just because we hadn't done it before. I had no idea how it would go. But Hutch said, let's do it. Let's roll with it. So I did it, and it didn't take me long to realize just how special the relationship was between these two guys. And because of that, it made the interview easy. And just to sort of hear the development stages and the process from both sides of it, they've got enough of a relationship that they can have that conversation honestly with our audience, and openly, and just, I don't know. I was impressed with everything about it. To me, it was one of my favorite interviews that we've done, and we're 67 into this thing right now, 67 episodes, just because of the back and forth, because of the relationship and the sense you get of it, and because of the key development points that are sort of contained within it from both the goalie and the coaching standpoint. And I'm with you, Hutch. I quickly came away a Jeremy Swayman fan. I hadn't had a chance to see him play, didn't know a lot about him. But I exited this interview going like, wow, I can't wait to see this kid in the NHL and get to see him at a rink, coming through town with the team, because much like Fleury, just that the way he loves it and has fun. And the picture we used in the post on In Goal Premium for the early preview of this article with Swayman winking at us, winking at the camera behind the net, was one that Alfie sent to me. He's like, this is the personality. You got to see this photo sums it up perfectly.
Well, and how good is Alfie that he can work with that? Because how many coaches in hockey would see a goaltender behaving that way and shut it down in a hurry? And
you got to focus. Yeah, get your head in the game.
Exactly. And all head coaches, of course, the goalie coaches out there are all brilliant. But that is sort of the culture of hockey, and he's lucky that he's been able to come up in the game with people that support that. As was Fleury, I'm sure it would be interesting to talk to some of his coaches when he was younger.
And the stick-to-itiveness of it, and grinding through a real disappointing part of your career, and when you're in it in the moment, it's really scary and disappointing and upsetting. But the year before he was drafted, the year before he played in that USHL club, like he was without a team, and he somehow managed to figure it out, find his route, bond with a coach, and make it work. And I thought that was an incredible lesson of just rising above adversity, and
a long way from home as he was doing it as well. So this, like I said, just there's a lot to like about the kid. I really enjoyed the interview. Including goalie coaches that won't go down and talk to their goalie in the intermissions of an NHL game. It varies from goalie to goalie and goalie coach to goalie coach, but for the most part, they don't do that, right? Like they don't want to get in the guy's head. They don't want them overthinking. I'm not saying they should, but to hear that.
No, I'm wondering, should they? And because as I was listening to this for the second time, I thought, why are goalies treated differently than defensemen or forward who get instant feedback and coaching, and why can't goaltenders be told mid-game or between periods to do something?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are probably some that, too much information, they can get paralyzed by overthinking. And there's a lot of guys. Funny, I was just having this conversation with an NHL goalie coach today about how he's backed off the technical in practices with his NHL guys because he finds them getting too locked up and losing that sort of you just go out and play mentality. And maybe there's a fear that if you give them too much instruction in a game or you talk too much about what other teams are doing, they might start looking for it or cheating for it, or they might start thinking too much. So I understand it from both points, but listening to it from Swayman's point, or as he said, like, why wouldn't I want that information in the game? It's a no-brainer. Like, obviously his coaches don't have to worry about locking him up with too much information. I would expect that those relationships and that back and forth will probably continue, and hopefully for his sake, they continue throughout his career. So it was just refreshing to hear that side of it. Maybe there's more that we haven't talked to that share that philosophy and go about it that way. But I got to be honest, for the most part, I hear the opposite.
Where are we on the tennis ball machine or baseball pitching machine? Does everybody have their order in?
Order in and received
already.
Yeah, order in and received. When I forget, we were just sitting and talking. It must have been about your chat with Jake Allen about these things, and I'd mulled over a pitching machine, in the dream world financially at one point, and then I heard it was 79 Canadian, 2 Starbucks coffees in the US, I think that is. So I hit order because it's so easy to do that, and it arrived today in the mail, little box, literally in the mailbox, and set it up downstairs, got her rocking and rolling, and you know what? It's pretty darn good. It's pretty darn good. I mean, it's the balls are small, and you wouldn't think the velocity is super high until you stand in front of them, and it's hard to catch those balls as they're ripping at you from. I think we set it up 18 or 20 feet away. And it's going to be a great little tool to use here in the house during the shutdown.
Well, according to one of the reviews I saw, 18 feet is like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't think
that
so.
Seemed a little high.
I think that's high, and I think it's probably because it was originally created for to be a baseball batting machine, and the balls are a little smaller. They're sort of golf ball-ish sized. I think they probably are looking at that as the difficulty of hitting 100-mile-an-hour pitch in baseball, because it's the combo of the reaction time when you're closer, but also the ball's a lot smaller, so you got a smaller target to hit. I'm just taking a wild guess for where they came up with that, but that said, firing balls at a pretty darn good little goaltender there. He wasn't catching very many of them from 18 feet away. So
do you wear your gloves when you do it?
You should. I think you should. We both stood in front of the machine, and both of us right away had balls going through where the pocket would have been on our glove. And so
sure.
No,
yeah.
You've got the video. Sure. You've got the video. Pull it open.
I believe it for the kid, not for the dad.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I would have caught that for sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All I need is this webbing the size of a small trout net.
I didn't say my hand was there in time. I just said I put it right where the webbing would have been.
But to give you a couple other perspectives on why goalies like this machine, and and in fairness, when Jake Allen,
what's the name of the machine again?
It's Skills Lightning Bolt Pitching Machine, and Skills is SKLZ. Make sure you check out ingoalmag.com, InGoal Premium members. We actually have an article that'll break down some of the ways these goalies are using it, and talk to some of the goalies around the world that are using tennis ball machines. The reason guys like this, and to be fair, when I first talked to Jake Allen about it, and of course, now that you've heard the interview, that's where Alfie discovered it. It's got some curve to it. It can break. The balls don't come out in a straight line every time. And so if you're looking for a reactive element, that uncertainty actually adds to that. Is it perfect? No, I think that's what Jake said. But at a time when we're looking for different tools, the advantages of this one, in addition to being smaller and cheaper, like tennis ball machines can run you up to $1,500.
Yeah. This
is like under 100, well under 100. And like I said, there'll be some links up for some buying options on the website. It also comes from the ground up. That's the other thing. It's a similar trajectory to a puck. It's not waist high like a tennis ball machine. It's not shooting down on you like a lot of other baseball pitching machines that are designed to be up higher and create the sort of trajectory of a baseball. This is coming from the bottom up. So you sort of, some of your mechanics are at least in part true to what you'd see on the ice with the shot coming from the ice and up at you. So I like that idea.
Hey, and boys, in the spirit of Jeremy Swayman, let's not forget, it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have fun in goaltending.
The idea of sort of bonding and developing some chemistry with your teammates, and you heard that in that conversation.
Yeah, and it actually has an option to be powered with batteries, so you could take it to the rink and use it in the dressing room, and no problem.
Which is what they did. In the spirit of fun, I want to make sure that Little Hutch definitely has the camera rolling the first time he turns that thing on you and gets you with a nut shot.
Absolutely. Front page, In Goal Mag. down goes Hutch.
Make sure you wear your bulletproof cup, Hutch.
Maybe we'll put a cup on Maddie and test it. Not me.
Would it hurt though? If not, I mean the groin area, but if you took one
Not
off the
really.
shoulder,
No. Well,
okay.
no. You can feel
They're
it.
foam.
You can feel they're hard-ish foam. You can feel it. I wouldn't say it stings, but you can feel it pretty good in the hand.
Oh, there's no question. It'd be 2 to 3 weeks upper body injury for me.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I've blown my knee, boys. I'll never be skating again. Back on the ice in 2 days.
So that link is on ingoalmag.com, and sign up for it. Everybody, it's the one of those things that has come out of this pause is the use of these machines by goaltenders off the ice. One other thing that we want to get to coming up on Sunday is this webinar involving Carey Price and Eli Wilson, and the details. So one more time, how people can get involved. And let's start way back. You're not an InGoal Premium member. You just love the podcast. You're listening. You want to be part of the webinar with Carey Price on Sunday. Hutch, take us through the journey and what has to happen.
Perfect. If you're not an InGoal Premium member, one thing I really would like all people who haven't joined to know is that you can go to ingoalmag.com today. The site is open for everybody to see. You'll see every single article that's available on the site. And some of them are open. Our podcasts are there for anybody to go and listen to on the site. All our equipment reviews are available for anybody to watch on the site. You don't need to be a member. But if you do want to take that extra step and be a member and get access to that close to 120 pages now of exclusive content, most of it with NHL goaltenders and their coaches, there's going to be a link right at ingoalmag.com, and you can sign up, or any article if you click on it and you don't have access, there's a link at the bottom. We make it very easy. We would love to have you in our membership. And so you head over there. One of the top posts will be a beautiful picture of Carey Price, and just click on that and you will be able to sign up for the webinar if you're an InGoal member. You just log into the site. There's going to be a little button. You click it. Dead simple. You have to have a Zoom account. And the reason that we're doing that, we're doing a Zoom webinar, is one, we want you to be able to reserve your spot. We don't want people having to line up online for those 500 places. You can just reserve it. Once that happens, you'll have your own link to get into the webinar on Sunday. So I think that's really important to know. And second, there's been a little bit of stuff in the news about Zoom. It's getting a bit of a bad rap as one of these platforms because people were doing what's called Zoom bombing, coming in, taking over school meetings, office meetings, and so on. But just so everybody knows, we're paying for a higher tier of Zoom so that none of that really is an issue at all. We're in control of who's able to speak and who's able to be seen. So no worries about security or anything. The Zoom account is free so that you can check out the webinar. So a whole lot of talk to say. It's simple. Go to InGoal, click on a link, sign up for the webinar. Love to see you on Sunday.
But only 500 spots.
Only 500 spots. So even if you're a member, I can't guarantee you're in. But obviously, we hope you all can get there.
Awesome. And we will chat with you guys then. And we will also look forward to next week's podcast. Just zooming along here on the InGoal Radio podcast during this pause. There's been a lot that has been tragic about what we've gone through, a lot that's been uncomfortable and inconvenient, but goaltenders and the access to them has been relatively beautiful in the sense that they've been open and available to us. So good work on the two of you, and Woody, nice to see you back dealing with a 2-on-1 with true professionalism today.
And as usual, anytime I face a 2-on-1, the other guys score. So the good news is the readers benefited from this one.
we'll celebrate Alfie Michaud, who has had his own journeys in the world of goaltending, and also now puts a guy into the professional ranks in Jeremy Swayman. Thanks to the two of them, and look forward to chatting with you on Sunday on the webinar and next week on the podcast on InGoal Radio, the podcast. And make sure you join Carey Price, Eli Wilson on the webinar on Sunday, May the 3rd at 1 o'clock Pacific time.